We talked about how this looks a lot like the test, and I'm going to go through all the answers to last night's homework so that you can also see them at home if you need to go over it again tonight. So we look at these, okay? Anything in red that gave you difficulty, anything at all. Were you sure to look for letter A and find the common factor first? Just like we like to say, what do you do before you cross the road? Look both ways. What do you do before you factor? You look for a common factor. Always, always, always. In this case, you could pull out a 2, and then you're left with a trinomial that's a regular factor. When you can't find a common factor, like letter E, we go to plan B, and we work it out. Okay? Any problem on number 2? Nothing on number 2? What about 3? That's a review question. I was careful to show each of the steps, so even if you need to review this at home tonight, you should be able to follow what I'm doing step by step by step. Any issues on numbers 4 and 5? Okay. We're good? All right, so now, if we take a look at number 6, and you look at your pretest, you will find a question in your pretest like number 6. So again, what we're trying to emphasize is the work you've been doing on your homework has been preparing you for this particular test. And if you have questions, it would be a good time to ask them. We're good? All right. There's also a question like, well, actually, there's not one exactly like this on your test, I don't think. It's actually a slight bit harder. This is a little bit of an easier version. But it's also fair game on the Regents. They've asked questions like this on the Regents. Any questions? Okay, number 8. Completing the square. You will have a completing the square question on the test. You'll have to do completing the square. So you can see step by step all of the ones I did there. I'll give you a minute to check your work. Yes?
How did you do C?
Oh, well, the first thing, to complete the square with a 3 in front of the W squared is ugly. So the first thing I did was I divided everything by 3, and I'm allowed to do that because it's an equation. I can divide everything by the same thing. So that gave me W squared plus 5W equals 4. Okay? Now I still have to half 5. What's half of 5? 2.5. So there it is. And then I have to square it. And then I say, well, what's missing? Well, in order for this to truly be W plus 2.5 squared, I needed a 6.25. And then if I do it on the left, I have to do it on the right. And that's where the 10.25 came from. Okay? And then the rest is the same. Any other questions on numbers 8, ABC? How many people feel more comfortable with completing the square now than they did, like, say, 3 or 4 days ago? Okay? I hope it's an easy question on the test. It should be. Okay, now, a question with quadratic formula. There is a question on your test that has the quadratic formula on it. Notice, the first step you have to do, I kind of skipped over it, so then I drew a little arrow back to it, is you have to subtract 38 from both sides. You have to get it so it says ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That way I know what my a, b's, and c's are for the quadratic formula. John Fossey today at Extra Help, he said to me, do I give you the quadratic formula on the test? And I said, you know what, John, I don't think I do, but I'm not sure. Take a look in the test itself, or the pretest. So he looked in the pretest. I don't give it to you. So you absolutely have to have it memorized. Any questions on number 11? Okay, number 12 to me is the least comfortable kind of question. It's doable, but we did it maybe for the last 10 minutes yesterday, and then we have some opportunities today and tomorrow to do questions like this. You will have a question like this on your test. So it says, look at what it says for number 12. Does it say find the roots or solve the equation or anything like that? No. It says describe the roots. That's when we talk about real, imaginary, rational, irrational, equal, unequal. So all I need to tell me about the roots is what we call the discriminant. the discriminant is really what's under this radical. I like to leave the radical there because it really tells you about what the roots will look like. So I just do that part of the quadratic formula, the b squared minus 4ac. In this case, I come out with the square root of 64. What's the square root of 64, everybody? 8. So I'm going to get something whatever plus 8 and something whatever minus 8. When I get that, first off, 8 is a rational number, so I know the roots have to be rational. It's also a real number. The only way it's not real is if it's imaginary, and the only way it's imaginary is the square root of a negative. So it's got to be real, it's rational, and it has to be unequal because in front of this plus or minus 8, you would have blah, 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 whatever it is, I don't care. You'd have that blah, blah, blah thing plus 8 and the blah, blah thing minus 8. The bottom line is that's two different answers, so they have to be unequal. Now I go to the middle one, and again I do b squared minus 4ac, and I crank it out, and I get 49 plus 8, which is the square root of 57. Do you know what the square root of 57 is? No, me either. So it's irrational. You can't find the square root of 57. If you had a calculator with you on the test, which you will have, if you type in square root 57 and you get a decimal that fills your screen, that's a way of telling you that it is irrational. And obviously it's unequal because one answer will be plus this radical 57 and the other answer will be minus the radical 57. That's two different values. The only way they will ever be equal is if what's under the radical is 0. God bless, because then plus 0 and minus 0 is the same thing. Lastly, we go to letter C. We work out the answer, blah, 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 blah. I get square root of negative 99. That's imaginary. Because I can't find the square root of a negative. Any questions? Now, I just went through all of those homework answers. If you could say, I understood everything that he just spoke of, you are in great shape for the test. But if as you go through this, you said to yourself, oh man, I'm not so big on number 12. Or maybe you say, that whole number 11 thing, 11 and 12, I'm not liking it too much. Then my advice to you is to, when you first begin doing the pretest, look for those. Okay? All right. What I suggest you do for the rest of the period is I suggest you work together. Now, before you do that, there are most of the people in this class, when given the opportunity to work together, improve. But there are some people who do not take it as seriously as they should. And I want to caution two things. First off, if you're one of these people who do not take it as seriously as you should, you're going to hurt yourself. Do you really want the relearn packet? Do you really want all the things, your grief from your parents, everything else that's going to go on? And here's the tough part. If you are paired up with a person, and that person just wants to do everything except this pretest, and I know this is going to sound mean, but it is in your best interest to look at the person, and it's also in the person's best interest, and say, if you keep this up, I'm leaving. Because ultimately, if that person keeps it up, you are going to get a lower grade, but what is that person going to get? A lower grade. It's called tough love. And sometimes for the good of the person, you have to say, look, I'm done here. I want to get better. And every time you're with me, all you want to do is joke. And we're not going to get better that way. So we're either taking this seriously, or I'm not going to be a partner with you. You can partner with somebody else. Maybe you can find somebody else that you're more serious with. And then, of course, if in the course of doing your work, you struggle and you're just not getting it, bring it here. Bring it up. Let me help you with that question. Okay? So you have the rest of the period to do that. Get started on it. Let's rock it out. I will give you the answers to the pretest tomorrow. Okay?